I can sense when I see you how you're going to be when you walk in, just by how you're walking, in your body language, and your facial expressions. I know that.
Yeah.
How many followers you have, how much money you have, doesn't mean you're a good person and you're good for me. It's okay to struggle, just as long as you don't sit in your struggle and let that define your life. I don't want their fame. I don't want Will Smith's fame. I don't want Denzel Washington's
You definitely
fame.
don't want Will Smith.
Definitely don't want Will.
What's going on, guys, and welcome to today's episode of the Mogul Insider Podcast. We are here with my man, Jon. I appreciate you for hopping on, dude.
Man, thank you for having me.
So
brother.
you're actually the first person on this podcast who, like, we got on who's, like, a complete stranger in terms of, like, my network.
Nice.
Yeah, which is going to be a really interesting interesting show. Because I get hit up a lot with, like, DMs. I'm like, hey, can I hop on? But it's always like, I don't know who you are. It's not, I try to, like, pre-qualify the type of people we speak to.
Right.
But I saw your stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is, my wife also caught the attention of your profile.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. She
That
goes,
means a lot. I appreciate that.
yeah, no problem. And she goes, dude, you need to talk to this guy. He seems like a cool-ass dude. So I'm glad you were able to make it down. I know it was like an hour and a half drive for you. So
You know what? But it's well worth it. Even in the rain and, in this crazy weather, I'm happy to be with you guys and getting to know y'all over the course of like the 15 minutes I've been here so far. It's been a pleasure. So
yeah, for
kindred
sure.
spirits, man. I definitely feel it.
You know, the coolest thing about podcasts, man, I'll tell you, is you meet people who you've never met before. You sit with them for 45 minutes, an hour, and because you're like intentionally trying to create a good conversation, you walk out of that thinking to yourself like, oh my God, it's like I've known these guys for years.
100%. And we learn things off of each other, and we kind of feed off of each other, which is something that I feel like in the social media and the AI and in this age of technology is something that I don't think we value enough. Behind text messaging and behind all these things that we have that prohibit us to really like bond and get to a place where we're actually learning and feeding and getting the energy that we need as human beings,
Yeah, it's rare to have a genuine human interaction nowadays.
Yeah, which is, I feel like, is a major issue with communicating and really holding a conversation down. It's kind of like if you're on a date with a woman and, she can't get past the first sentence and you have the awkward silence and you're like, she clearly doesn't know how to communicate. What year was she born?
And then especially when like just communicating, like let's say you met her online.
Right.
Like communicating over like messaging or over text or whatever, you're like, wow, this person's hilarious. Like that's such a great personality. Then you meet them in person, you're just like, where did that go? Like,
right.
It's just out the window.
Or they don't want to meet at all. You're just going back and forth on the social media platform here, and like, okay, so when are you free? I don't know. I'm just not comfortable. Like, we've been chatting for the past 2 months. Like, when are you ever going to be comfortable? This is gonna what is this happening right now?
Yeah.
But
especially where you live, man. I mean, you live in the valley, so you're kind of not. I mean, you're not that close to downtown LA and
I'm in that world, man. Even
but
in the
you're
valley.
in that world, valley. You are. Yeah.
Actually, it's
people
funny
up there
enough,
are like,
correct me if I'm wrong, that world is kind of pushing towards the valley now.
It is. I think and unfortunately it's pushing all over because everyone wants to be, something other than a human being. I feel like now it's pushing.
What can I do to not be myself?
I know, right? Well, how can I enhance this type of filter to make me look more like a claymation doll or some kind of anime figure on our social media or whatever? But honestly, the Valley actually is pretty dope. I mean, I've been living there about 3 years now. And I've lived in different places throughout LA County, just through hardship, but then just through living life. And I've found a nice little niche in the valley. I run amongst the people in the neighborhood with my jogging every day, and I found a place of home that I feel in the valley. So I'm appreciative of the Woodland Hills, Winnetka, Canoga Park area that I've had the pleasure of meeting people there working in that area and security in various places, and it's been pretty good. So even though we talk about this, I actually have respect for the folks out there, and I appreciate
I'm
it.
sure there's good people all around the
Yeah,
world. It's just what
100%.
happens is like there's like I think like a majority of weird individuals that just
Absolutely.
kind of are in that area, you know.
100%.
It doesn't mean that they're all bad. It's just like yeah,
Right.
you do meet some like weirdos, and you're just like, well, what the heck is this? I mean, like through the nature of this like podcast, you know, when I
Yeah.
first started this before these guys hopped on, I've interviewed a lot of like some cool people, like you know some A-listers too, and then it was such a big shock for me when like you see these guys on TV, you grow up watching them, and then you meet them, and you're just like, I want nothing to do with you.
Right.
Like I walk away from the podcast thinking, all right, that's gonna get views, but aside from that, I'm not interested in a friendship. I don't want to get to know you. Like there's no value that you're gonna add into my life, and I've noticed that consecutively time after time. Hence why like I've kind of like even stayed away from it for quite a while. But I want to dive into your background. I think it's really interesting. So
100%, man. Let's talk about it, man.
yeah, you've got a lot of things going on. So you're like an actor, a bodybuilder, security guy.
Yeah.
You've done security for some high net worth individuals.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I gotta ask, like, are you just trying to do a bunch of things? Are you testing, or what's the?
There's something about being a dreamer and going for things that are something that you want to do. And on the course of that, you run into different individuals that, you know, coexist in your dream. Obviously not dreaming with you in that aspect, but just being in that environment, it pushes you to your goals, right? So moving out here to LA area, security was never something that I thought I'd ever do. Like I just never said, oh, I want to do security, from working in, you know, management through entertainment of like, you know, billiards and bowling, and to being a teacher in education. I just had this acting bug hit me, and I'm like, I really want to do acting. And so what's the best place to go? Go to LA. And I had a friend, and from that, the journey began, from cleaning homes to washing cars, and security was always something that was like, oh, I could do that, and did some red carpet events here and there until I started working out, getting a little bigger, and people took notice. And I started getting, you know, door jobs in the Valley. I met a guy that I ended up working with for a small amount of time. And Jason Derulo, worked with him as his guard for a little time, and then worked for TikTokers and bloggers and other celebrities as Ray J and all these guys. And it was just going through the course of just trying to survive in LA while working on the things that I wanted to do in the acting world, just to kind of like, you know, pay my rent, because obviously rent is high and you got to have a decent amount of income to make that happen. And acting's not always going to do that if you're not, you know, a major star or a leading role, or you're getting a series regular job. So those are the kinds of things that I did to keep myself going. And, you know, now I work for bikini bars and strip clubs right now. So it's it goes from one area to the other. No, but I mean, obviously, even working in these environments, the goal and the dream is still there, and I'm still pursuing it and still having fun with it, and loving every step of it.
What's the ultimate dream?
The ultimate dream is to be a part of a production that I have passion for and I love. And in the process now, I'm working on doing my own stuff. I have funding, and I have a script, and I have some actors and a director that I'm doing my own work on, and getting that put out there. After all the stuff I've been a part of, I think now is so important to create my own work and let that be the benchmark as to where this takes me. And if I put it down and say, you know what, I had my fun, I'm good, I'll go and do something else, which I'm fully capable of doing. I mean, I have a degree from reputable, university, in Millikan University. I graduated. I've had, different various positions. So this is just, me saying, you know what, at the end of the day, I hold the keys to my own dream, my own career, my own world. And why not, instead of saying woe is me and waiting for people to cast me, cast myself and help the opportunity for other actors to be a part of something pretty cool.
Now, how did that how did the writer's block or that writer's strike affect you as an actor?
And honestly, it didn't affect me much at all because I've always had to go through the rigors of waiting for work. I think it affected people who relied on extra work to kind of buffer their income, and so having the loss of that work hurt them. But for me, I've always been doing security. Always been acting in on stage or doing a class and things of this sort. So it didn't really affect me. It's like honestly, if anything, it made me stronger, more willpower. Also working on my own stuff, type of thing. So it wasn't a big hit towards me as people may think. To be honest with you. Yeah.
So I know like some people try to act, and I feel like what you're doing is like you're taking a step above, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna find my own path, I'm gonna do my own, I'm gonna basically employ myself.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now, what genre have you basically, like, I guess my question is, what genre are you most passionate about?
I like drama. I like layers of a character having gone through something traumatic and having to come out of it, whether it be going through a sadness, anger, depression, things that we deal with in life on an everyday level, and showcasing that. A lot of the stuff that I've gotten, I haven't been able to showcase what I really want to do and what I feel I'm capable of doing with the writing and the elements around it. And in order for me personally to feel like I'm contributing, it's best that I take the bull by the horns and do it myself, along with the help of great cast and crew and directors and producers that I choose for the project. And I got something I feel is going to make some waves, and we're in the process of making that work. It's a really cool, a superhero-esque type of slasher meets a lot of things. So I'm excited about that, and the journey on that has begun, and I'm excited.
Oh,
that's super awesome. You're working on your own project. How much does regret work into kind of like your life decisions? I'm not talking about like regret as in like things you regret doing, but rather there's this philosophy that I have where I think of myself, my future self, looking back at me now. And it's more like I don't want to be at that age in the future regretting not having done something that I have the chance to do right now. So how much does that work into your life decision making?
It's funny you mention that, because I always feel like we used to call it the pavilion. Under the pavilion, where I'm from, and it's a park where people go underneath this structure, and they shoot dice, or they're talking, they're drinking. And I remember being a kid and playing basketball outside summer days, and these older men would always talk about things that they wish they would have done and never did. They always talked about, what I could have been and how I could have done this, and I could have gone to the league, or I could have made this, cool, idea for this venture and became a millionaire, and they're tipping their Mad Dogs or their 40s, or, they're continuing to do the things that is prohibiting them from getting to where they said they could have done, or they could have been, or where they could have went. And as a kid, you see that, and you want to do the opposite of that. And I guess I saw myself through their eyes of looking at myself and saying, am I really happy where I am? Did I really maximize what I was capable of doing? Did I go after this, or did I just stay comfortable? And sometimes in order, I have found for me to hit certain levels of my life, being uncomfortable is so important. I train uncomfortable. Like after this podcast, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna train outside. It might be windy and raining, and not gonna care, because life, you're gonna deal with adversity, even in the things that you feel is the most accomplished, is that the struggle never ends. There's always going to be pressures. There's always going to be things that are going to be, against you, but you still have to fight through the currents regardless. You know what I'm saying? You think these people that are billionaires or huge in their professions don't have pressure? They have tons of pressure. They have payroll, they have expectations, all these things that they have to meet and they have to hit. And in order, I feel, to prepare yourself, you got to put yourself through tests of your own willpower and your own things. And so when you get to those levels of success, it didn't phase you. It's like, Michael Jordan had a philosophy, I practice. My practices were even more intense. The things I did in practice was more, I guess, to the naked eye, like remarkable. But it made the games that much more easy because I put myself through that. And I think that's what it comes down to as far as looking back on things that I wish I would have done or could have done. Well, now I'm pushing the envelope. I've lived this the life of having a salary and working for a company, and I was miserable. I wasn't happy. I was miserable because there was so much more I wanted to do, and I felt like this was limiting me from that. And I said, well, I can either stay with this job or go out here and gamble on homelessness, gamble on not having enough, gamble on all this stuff to have that opportunity to be on set with an iced tea, the opportunity to be on set at NCIS LA working with Marty Deeks, the opportunity to, do these cool things that I've done in Houston and being in films and stuff for this misery that I'm putting myself through, but the reward, even if it's like a small amount, means so much more. It's better than being comfortable and thinking back to myself, like you said, what if I would have tested myself more?
Yeah. So there's actually a saying that I sent Mostaffa today, and that said, the real risk is not doing nothing.
Right.
I'm sorry, is doing nothing. Right. The real risk is doing nothing. So like, I feel like everything that you just said right now is that regret, that potential thing of like when you were young, of the old heads basically telling you, oh, I should have done this and I could have done that and I was this and I was that. Mm-hmm. You're just getting all that inspiration now to be like, all right, cool. Now I'm of age. Now I'm physically capable. I'm mentally capable. I got this time. Now is the time that they were talking about they wish that they were in, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, all right, bet. Am I just going to fast forward to their life? Right. Or am I going to fast forward to a life that they wish they had?
Right. And also, too, this is the life that I was chosen to live. I do believe in a higher power. I believe in God. I was raised in the church growing up. My mom made sure that I had a relationship with Jesus. And understanding that in any kind of pursuit for a blessing, you're going to have ups and downs, peaks and valleys, but the reward and the blessing is so much greater. But it's not so much the blessing, it's the process. It's the journey. The journey is just as important as the reward. The reward doesn't even mean as much, unless you've gone through something to get there. Mm-hmm. Think of, if we're going through a football right now, you think of all of these teams that have gone through so many adversities to get to each game, to each playoff experience. And by the end of it, a lot of them are hurt, a lot of them are injured, but when they pulled that trophy up, that's going to mean so much more than just giving it to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just part of it. Like, I think of what I ever would have imagined in my life, sitting in a place where you have men going to an establishment to get whatever fulfillment out of it due to looking at a woman who's half naked. Never would have thought that. But here's the thing. It's a part of my life that's a season, because these people who employ me allow me to go after the things that I want to do and maintain a sense of income while the process is happening. So it's a blessing even in the environment where folks can sit here and say, oh, that's this and that's that. These people have given me an opportunity to keep my income up while I'm pursuing what I'm doing. And that is, to me, that's the path that's chosen, right? And these individuals I've maintained a relationship with have taught me much more than I ever would have thought. I never would have thought that I'd be in the presence of women who are brilliant, women who are smart and intelligent, and they do something, that some may consider,
unethical,
unholy, this, that, and the third. But you begin to have compassion and you begin to have empathy for people that you never would have thought, especially living in a household where, the fruits of the Spirit was important and the Ten Commandments was important, and, the Christian life in general was something that you lived by, being from Southern Illinois. So it's taught me so much, just the journey, just going through the levels and the rigors of being a part of this life out here. It's a different ball of wax living in this area, but it's constantly testing me. It constantly reminds me of how much better I need to be, how much more I need to be more compassionate with people, more patient, just being in that place of really looking in the mirror and analyzing myself. I remember when COVID happened and everybody was freaking out and, all this stuff. And I was 350 pounds. And I got some cool opportunities doing some commercials and doing some stuff. But I was thinking, how bad do I want to do this in show business? How bad do I really want to be an actor?
I'm sorry, 350 pounds like muscle?
350 pounds of fat. I mean, I was big. But that's why I was a bodyguard, because I was so huge, 6'4", 350, going to Dubai, going to Qatar, going to London, guarding like a pop star guy that's doing all this stuff. That was appealing and it was cool, but was it healthy for me? And is this what I wanted to do with my life? You know what I mean? You get so lost in other things and you don't think about what you're here to do. And at that point, I was thinking about, I'm not working. They've shut down the operation. I had a situation with the team of that particular person, an artist. And I just started thinking, I'm going to start running. I'm going to lose this weight. And in a year, I lost the weight. And I thought, you know what? I want to do a bodybuilding competition. I think, why not? I mean, it's only going to test me. Studios kind of put a halt on things because of COVID, blah, blah, blah. I want to start going into training to be a bodybuilder. And then that journey happened, where more levels of adversity, more things, more testing of, we like you, but you got to pay this, that, and the third. Oh, I like you, but the time the competition is starting, I don't particularly think you have enough time to really get to that level of posing. And so then I had to learn on my own.
So you said that you have your pro card.
I do. I have my pro card.
So what led up to that? Like how does a person get a pro card?
What you do is you look for opportunities through bodybuilding competitions that have open events. And the open events allow you to go on stage and do your thing. And if you're at, you get to a top three, but if you win it, depending on the actual event, you get your pro card at that point. So I went my first time, it was physique, and I got second place. Yeah, got second place in physique. Some told me I should go back and do actual bodybuilding category, because you have physique, you have classic, and then you have bodybuilding. And I trained, and I went back the second year to Phoenix, Arizona, and I got my pro card.
So what's the difference between like all three, between like the physique, the classic, and just bodybuilding?
So physique is where the guys with the shorts are wearing. They're wearing shorts,
okay,
and they have they're all striated, but it's a lot. The waist is a lot more slim. They're more pretty in their poses. Everything's just crisp and pristine. Classic is an older style of bodybuilding, a smaller version of the bodybuilding category, but it's still in the same bandwidth of posing and things of that sort. And then you have bodybuilders who are bigger. Now this was natural, so I didn't go into the other organizations
like a Mr. Olympia or something like that.
Yeah, so that's a different organization. either way, you're still putting in work. You always hear, this person's natty, he's not natty, this person this, that. I've seen people who are on the needle and people who are natty look better than them. You know what I mean? You still have to put the work in. You have to put the time in. You have to put the training in, the eating in. It doesn't, obviously, would people prefer to go natural than have to do that to their body, because ultimately what you're doing is destroying your body at the end of the day if you do that, just being real, right? But that's their choice. That is their prerogative. I'm not going to bash anyone who is choosing to take any anabolics or TRT or whatever it is they're taking. Peptides. Some can argue peptides are just as bad as anything else. Like, who knows, right? Now they're trying to put a stronghold on peptide supplements. So at the end of the day, it's what works for you, and it's what makes you feel good. But it's also making sure you go through the process like everybody else and put the work in. It's all about the work. And
so it's interesting because I feel like that kind of ties back to like your acting career, because going into bodybuilding, right? Mm-hmm. Many times you have to teach yourself poses. You have to teach yourself certain things. If you're not basically privileged enough, or you don't have the honor to or the opportunity to get a coach, right? A training coach and a fitness coach in general, right? You have to teach yourself. So I feel like tying that back to like your whole acting career and so on, it's like there are going to be times where you have to be a certain physique. You have to be super big.
Absolutely.
There'll be times where you have to be super scrawny, right? Depending on like the kind of role that you're going to play. Yeah. But I feel like now that you have that opportunity to like morph your body into something that many people can only dream about, you've done that. You've been there. So like, I feel like this whole like randomness, that this whole journey that you've gone through is just adding up to your ultimate dream. So that's it's crazy to see it all kind of like pieced together slowly, but it's one of those things where like if you have that vision, if you have that ultimate dream, it doesn't really matter like what track that you get or like what track that you go on, like eventually you will get there.
I also want to add in on not allowing your struggle. I don't allow my struggle to define where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I think that what happens is you go through these rigors of trying to do something that you've always wanted to do, and you hit struggle. And some people give up because it's too tough, too complex, there's too many moving parts, there's too many, ups and downs, excuses. But if you take that energy of the struggle, right, you take the energy of that and you apply it to working on things to better yourself, to looking at it from a different perspective, a different angle, you'll find that within that struggle and that dream, you're going to start making minuscule accomplishments, small accomplishments, and they add up to bigger things at the end of the day. And what I've been, thankful, privileged, and just honored to be a part of it is through that, meet amazing people. Never would have thought I'd meet a guy, said, hey, do you want to guard me? I said, yes. Now next thing I know, I'm a guitar. Never would have thought I'd meet a guy, hey, you want to guard me? Now I'm in Miami, on a stage in a boxing ring. But it's through that struggle and through that, and it goes back to my childhood and my mother struggling and making things not seem so bad. Like, we're going on an adventure. We're going on, we get to meet somebody else, go somewhere else, live in a new house. And different environments matter. Staying in one place every time sometimes kind of makes you feel comfortable. Where I've lived a life where comfortable is uncomfortable. I don't want to be comfortable. You know what I mean? And that goes back to weight loss. It goes back to fitness. It goes back to just getting to those goals, is understanding that it's okay to struggle. Just as long as you don't sit in your struggle and let that define your life. Mm-hmm.
No, I love how you mentioned it. It's the process that people, got to change their focus on. Because in the situation of like a football player, for example, if you ask any one of them like, hey, would you rather just fast forward in the beginning of season to you carrying the championship, I think most of them would say no, because that's kind of like there is no substance to that experience without the entire process that they had to go through, the whole season of wins, loss, injuries, all of that, the whole process. It makes carrying the trophy a lot more enjoyable. I wanted to ask, man. You said you said your dad was in the Marines.
Well, yeah, my father was in the Marines. I had an uncle who was also in the Marines. I had another uncle who was in the Army, served in.
So you have pretty strong discipline.
I did, and I do, and it kind of stems from a lot of stuff. You know, my father, my upbringing with my dad was a little different. I was raised by my mother. It was kind of a broken home situation, but seeing it from afar, my father, you know, being a prison warden, he was a prison warden for quite some time and ran some pretty huge prisons for the federal government and the state and private institutes as well in prisons, and seeing him, and he was like a superhero. My mother being a major instrumental factor in the church and being disciplined and going to Bible studies and going to church groups and all these things. And that's kind of how acting bug too, was through doing plays in church and stuff in church and doing speeches in church. So that was a big thing. But as far as the military aspect of stuff, just staying on a regimen, being consistent every day. And that also went into athletics, being an athlete. You know, college athlete, you know, high school athlete. It all kind of came together. So all that came together to a head as I've grown and still use some of those teachings and lessons to this day as almost a 40-year-old man.
How old are you?
I'm 38.
38. Very cool. That's awesome, dude. So you know, the creative space is an interesting space because like I'm more on the business side of things. Okay. So like if you start a business, you know what you're doing, you sell a product, you make money, like I mean, whether it's $1, $2, you make money. So you have a level of momentum that you can mentally go, okay, this is working. The creative world, like to take this podcast, for example, we could do this for God knows how many years and not see anything, right? And that's a same thing when it comes to athletes, same thing when it comes to actors. Sure, in your journey too, same thing where you're like, okay, because like Hollywood's a very, very competitive space. Yeah. So I'm a bit curious from your perspective, what are some like, I would say like mind tricks that you might have to put yourself through in this journey to like keep going? I'm not going to really ask you how do you keep motivation high, because I don't like, you know, that's all, you know, it's like the typical stuff that you see on the internet. I'm more so just like curious on the mindset that you have to wake up and tell yourself, okay, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep attacking this, even though you're not necessarily at that big superstar that you're trying to achieve or become. Right. And especially, I see this happen to some people, especially since you've seen it. Like you've guarded famous people. Oh yeah. So you've seen the fame, you've felt it, you've touched it, you've smelled it. I don't know if it's ever hit you where you're like, oh, when is it going to be my turn? Right. But I'm a bit curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I look at it like building a house. Like each thing that I'm a part of creatively is building this home that ultimately is going to be the you know, the space where I'll have my career. And, you know, I'm not thinking of it in terms of blowing up or becoming famous. I'm thinking of it in terms of constantly working on creative objectives, right? So, you know, I have an audition, I get the audition, I go to the audition, casting office, or I do it at home. That's a creative block that I've made. That's a creative brick that I've made. I'm working on a script that I'm doing, and I want to budget, produce, obviously finance and co-direct. That's a creative space. And each of these things that I've been a part of is going to ultimately build this house that I want to be built. Now, it's going to be different than a Will Smith. It'll be different than a Denzel Washington or a Michael B. Jordan. It's not the same for everybody. It's my lane. I'm building and creating my lane. And I don't want their fame. I don't want Will Smith's fame. I don't want Denzel Washington's
You definitely
fame.
don't want Will Smith.
You know what? No, I'm going to say something, man. I want to say something about that because it's important that I say this because it recently happened. And I think it's good to talk about because of everything that's going on. I was at a restaurant with a friend of mine, and we're sitting there and we're eating. It was in Santa Monica. And I'm looking behind her, and I say, that's Will Smith, Michael B. Jordan behind you. She's like, no way. I'm like, no. I know who they are. I'm going to go up. I'm going to go say hi to them. Walk past security, which I shouldn't have done, but I used to do security, and I know your peripheral vision you don't always see. You're looking straight ahead at people on the beach near the park of the beach area. I'm drawing a blank on where it is in Santa Monica, but they weren't even looking at me, and and I walk up to Will Smith and I said, "Sir, I'm a huge fan of your work. Thank you so much." And he graciously shook my hand and gave me a hug, and there was a certain kind of glow about him. There was this openness to this cat. It was refreshing. I've seen a lot of famous folks. There's some kind of guarding thing that happens when you get to that level. Mm-hmm. There's certain kinds of, I live in this, encaved place where I have a gated, community and a gated home and guards surrounding me. And, I don't know you like that. Got to talk to my security first. He was so open. You know what that means? That man's put work in. That's what that means. That means that man has gone places, reflected on himself, reflected on his actions, and he's put work in to be a better individual for a random guy, right, that is a muscular dude. I'm tatted up. I'm like, he could be like, "Hey, man, who are you?" Or had a security on me. He embraced me, And Michael B. Jordan embraced me, but it was a little different of embrace. I appreciate his embrace, but it was different. And it's only because you have a guy who's gone through so much and has had to reflect. And I think it's a true testament to mistakes that we make. No one in this room is innocent of making mistakes and having to learn from them and reflect on them. Some may be bigger than others, but a mistake is a mistake. And an outburst is an outburst, and we're all men, and we've all had those things happen to us at some point in our life.
I think too, it's easy to sit from this perspective and go like, "Oh, those guys, on TV, blah blah blah." Yeah. Like I always try to think like if I had a camera on my life 24/7, oh geez, right. I'd probably be like in jail right now for the things that I've probably done.
The heck are you doing?
No, not committing crimes. No, I don't do any of that stuff. I'm just saying like in an extreme sense, like we've all made mistakes, like we've all done certain things. Said certain things to certain friends that were like, "Hey, I don't know if I like that," or like done certain things with certain people. I'm like, "Hey, I'm not sure if I want to be around
certain group chats."
Huh?
Certain group chats.
What group chats?
No, I'm just saying.
Group chats. Yeah.
You might say something in the group chat that, shouldn't go public.
Speaking of group chats, do you guys hear about the whole? I know this is a complete sidetrack, but the Microsoft thing with Xbox Live. I don't know if they still went through with it, but I think beginning of last year they were talking about how they're gonna start releasing like game chat audio to like the feds. So and if they find that you're saying anything that's bad or whatever, they're gonna block you or ban you off the game.
Well, we're living in a cancel culture type world. We're living in a very delicate world, and I think it's important for us to highlight people who have made drastic changes because they only have one mouth. And it's important for other people who have seen things. And I don't know the man like that. I'm not in his camp. I don't know, but I do know energy because I'm a guard. And one thing that guards know is I can sense when I see you how you're going to be when you walk in just by how you're walking and your body language and your facial expressions. I know that.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to say something about that. I feel like Will Smith was so receptive to you because he felt that energy. Mm-hmm. When someone walks up, as you said, man, and sometimes you just get some sort of feeling from a person that you just cannot explain.
I think back to what we were saying. I don't even know if we started but the podcast by saying it, but it was just like the whole idea of the lack of human interactions nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's just everything is so superficial. And then back to what you were saying.
Guys like that too.
Yeah. Back to what you were saying. It's like their whole life is under a microscope. So it's like you get tired of it after a while. Mm-hmm. So when something genuine comes up, and then just a real handshake feels good every once in a while.
Yeah. So that was basically what I wanted to say regarding that, man. So obviously we can all joke around about certain things, and I completely understand that no one's perfect, right? We all messed up. No one's in a way today infallible, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really easy to point fingers at a whole bunch of people and certain things, but with regards to Will Smith and all seriousness, the man has classics on classics on classics, right?
Right.
So like from like obviously my favorite is Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to like his rapping career to his acting career, with movies. Like I love I Am Legend. It's like one of my favorite movies, and so on and so forth. But like no one's gonna be perfect. So I feel like when you are under like constant surveillance, people are trying to. People look up to you. People want to be in your position. People want your life. People want your money. People want your status. People want your clout. And I feel like those people are not living the most satisfied life anymore. Meaning like, the very, very famous celebrities, because everything is judgment. Everyone has an opinion on every single thing that you say. Everything. You wore something that I didn't like, The homie might be like, oh, that was pretty fresh. I'd be like, nah, his shoes didn't match his this and that. Something stupid. Oh, he ordered this, but he should have ordered that. Like, everyone has an opinion on you, but it's constant. It's constant judgment.
I'll take a step further with that, because I'm not going to, obviously talk about specific people or names or whatever, but I know for a fact that a lot of these people who are an entity that is a celebrity, entertainer, what have you, they're employing a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
They are their business, right? So they're responsible for salaries. They're responsible for livelihoods. They're responsible for, other people's children. They're responsible for all those things. And I don't know if we sometimes factor that aspect of it in, right? We just see somebody who's snobby and stuck up and doesn't want to take a picture. We see somebody who lives in this entrapped community and doesn't want to go out because of being bombarded by a bunch of fans. We don't realize that, there's a high, in certain places, there's a high, probability that they would kidnap them or try to take their kids or try to use them as clout to murder them and say, look what I did to so and so and so forth, and that their guarding is due to protecting their empire and their structure and their livelihoods for not only themselves but for other people, to keep this thing going. Because outside of them, if they have businesses, other entities, sometimes that's all they have, So there's other aspects of it that I don't think we always understand. And having privilege to have, been a guard for some of these people, I see it from a different lens than what other people do, looking at tabloids or watching stuff on YouTube or what have you. I see it from the practicality of, I got to protect myself. So I hire people to protect me and things of that sort. The human aspect is another thing. That people, your income, what you're getting is attributed to people paying money for your shows, your films, the things that you're on. And so there needs to be a little bit of appreciation and gratitude along with that too. So trying to balance that out isn't always easy. Some people are good at doing it, and that takes work. Some people not so much, because you have, folks that, get taken advantage of and things of that sort. That's why people you associate is be very careful with. That's why, knowing energy, knowing the kind of people you have around you, are they good people? Because how many followers you have, how much money you have, doesn't mean you're a good person and you're good for me, And I think that that's something that we kind of lose sight on. I'm going to say one thing, and I think we're going to wrap up pretty soon. I used to guard this guy that was manic, a lot of problems, had businesses, millions of dollars, right? And over the course of that, his behavior of different substances put him behind bars, making bad decisions. Years later, I see this guy, and we're talking and chopping it up. And he's talking to me about, I'm about to start this another venture. It's going to be good. And I asked him, I said, did you ever master just being a good person? You've had everything. You can get that, right? You can get that business going and be a millionaire times 1,000 again.
Yeah.
But if you don't work on being a good individual and good towards others, you're back in the institution where you started. And I think that's where we have to own in, and that's why it's important for us to highlight good in people and not always get all this cred and all this publicity of bad things people do, because that just discourages others to try not to work on themselves and be better. You know, if a person makes a mistake and they're working on themselves because they want to be better, but we need to also highlight that as well and look to, those kinds of elements than just canceling them out or pretending like they don't matter or just, highlighting the mistakes all the time than seeing, I am a fan of someone's work. If you make a mistake, right, but you're this venture capitalist that has made so many groundbreaking businesses, I'm a fan of your work. It doesn't take away from the brilliance you have off of one thing. You mean to tell me one thing you did takes away from everything that you have accomplished in your life? No. That's me being too emotional and not thinking of it from a practical perspective. You're still a brilliant individual.
That's true, but also just really depends on the severity of what the person does, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, if the person does something extremely heinous or something like that, then that, in a way, does take away from a lot of person's, like...
I think it's pretty clear. He's talking about, like, the petty stuff, though. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? The petty, like, natural human mistakes that we're going to make.
Yeah.
100%.
How often do you work on your own self-reflection, and how do you feel, to what degree would you say is it's important that people recognize their own insecurities as they move along in this thing called life? Because most of what you just talked about right now, like, people love to see other people fail, or the whole thing behind cancel culture is because a lot of people have so much insecurities that they have unhandled within themselves that they go and project it onto others, right? Causing them to treat them a certain way, causing them to prey upon their downfall.
Yeah.
So how much self-reflection do you do? And, and also, I guess, like, trying to analyze your own insecurities in order that you're not projecting it onto others.
I think that we're living in a culture that we see other people on our lens, on our phone, and we lack the motivation to just have a life of our own, right? And have goals of our own. And if I'm so focused on you, then my life is gonna, like, surround stuff you do and point at you. But if I have things that I'm working on and I'm doing, I'm not too concerned about this individual or this thing or talking about this downfall, because I have so much going on for myself. And I think that is what we're lacking now, is that people aren't making goals for themselves and working on themselves and doing small things like, taking a book from a coffee table and starting to read it, and, writing a journal about things that they've had to endure and things that can work on themselves on. And little nuggets like that, you'll find pieces of motivation to do something instead of sitting around, pinpointing somebody's issue and just beating them with it. You'll have things that you're working on. I'm not thinking about people who, pick or nitpick at me, because I have too much going on. And if it's like that for all of us, that slowly starts to go away, and we have less and less of that. But if we have a society of people that just get some kind of fulfillment out of pinpointing on somebody and wanting them to be gone because they said something that they hurt their feelings or whatever, we lose sight of the goals that we have and the things that we are. Because if you really looked at yourself, and if we want to go to a biblical sense and a Christian sense, how are we casting stones when we have too much of our own stuff, right? You can't sit here and cast stones at somebody when you are just as guilty and just as negative as they are. If the roles were reversed and people knew what you've done or what you have in your head to do or what you fantasize about, you'd be right up there getting stones casted at you. And I don't think people understand it from that perspective. It's about, oh my gosh, they are this and they said that or they did this. But we have to really own in on, and that's what I do. I just find myself having something I want to work on and just making moves to make that happen, and staying forward with that. Working at security, I'm not working there because I just love working there. I'm working there. I appreciate working there to keep my machine going of creativity and do the best at it and use that as a tool.
That makes a lot of sense. How you started off by saying they lack the motivation to like find the drive to do their own like goals and to achieve their own dreams, because they simply don't have the ability to hold themselves accountable.
Yeah.
Or be responsible for their own actions.
Right.
You know, and that was the kind of like made apparent in my head because you mentioned the whole
That, and also too, like
biblical sense.
what you were talking about as well is basically don't judge other people because they sin differently than you.
Right. Amen. That's true.
Yeah. Well,
That's
John,
so
where can
true.
people find you on social media, man?
Jonathan Wesley Booker on Instagram, and then put in Jon Booker on Instagram. IMBD is Jonathan Booker, O-N, not A-N, on IMBD. Let me see here. And then Facebook is Jon Booker. It's open, so you can check me out. Definitely appreciate the love. I appreciate
Yeah, for sure.
sitting here talking to you guys.
I wish we had
man.
more time, man. Cause
Yeah,
like,
honestly,
these
yeah,
conversations barely get started in like.
But
an
we just
hour.
got to do a part 2 then. That's
Yeah,
Hell
yeah,
yeah,
we'll
dude,
definitely get it
absolutely.
done,
At
man.
some
Well, I
point,
appreciate
you
you
know.
for hopping on, John. Yeah,
Man.
hopefully we'll get you on for a second part.
I mean, thank y'all for having me. God bless y'all, man. Thank
No
you.
Man,
problem.
you too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.